Hello everyone and welcome to another flight. This time we're going to be flying in the Horizon Air Fokker 28. This is a just flight bird, the same guys that did the BAE 146, and it is also an old school aircraft. In fact, fun story, this aircraft used to fly into my hometown of Fresno in this livery, and in fact the livery pack that I got even says right here, the great city of Fresno. So this livery kind of holds a special place in my heart. This for a long time was the biggest passenger aircraft that flew into Fresno. Obviously, the bigger aircraft that flew in were the cargo aircraft, the 757 and the 727, and actually for a little while a DC-8 by DHL. So, this was the biggest passenger one we had. Everything else was little turboprops, Embraer Brasilias, and Saab 340Bs and stuff like that. So, anyway, this is a cool aircraft. I really enjoy flying this thing, and the way we're going to fly it, I'm going to fly it without the GPS. So we're going to fly this old school, just VORs and NDBs. Actually, I think today is just VORs. I don't think there's any NDBs we're messing with. And we're going to Palm Springs, and we're over here in Phoenix. Here's the terminal building. We're over at the Foxtrot gates, and this is, I believe, AmSim BM scenery. It's AmSim Beautiful Knowledge of the World scenery, available through multiple things. But they've been pumping out some really good sceneries lately, and so that's their offering. So let's take a look around the aircraft real quick. It's not a very large aircraft. It is very much kind of like a CRJ on steroids, I guess you could say, maybe. But it's a pretty cool aircraft. So we got the ground power connected right now. We've got some cargo bins down here that can be opened. The wing, as you can see here, pretty low. And I may cough occasionally. I'm still getting over a cold, so I'll try to mute the mic when that happens. And I'm finding the more I talk, the more I'm wanting to cough. So that's fun. But it looks real nice. We got the engine pod up here. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. There we go. Find the right, there we go. And there are some stator guide vanes right there. This is interesting. It's kind of some fluid leakage and stuff, which unfortunately looks like we ingested a bird and mutilated it coming out the back. I think that's supposed to be more like hydraulic fluid or oil of some kind, but it looks kind of funny. The APU exhaust outlets back here. We have the APU exhaust right there, and this is just like the BAE 146 has the interesting distinction of having what we call butt flaps in the flight sim community. But it's the spoiler, instead of being on the wing. Well, there's a ground spoiler on the wing. The air spoiler, instead of just being less pronounced like it is on most aircraft, actually is these two clamshells that open up here and help deflect air, and it's actually very effective. This airplane can slow down very nicely, and it's very helpful in gotta get down fast situations and slow down. So this aircraft has really no issue slowing down because of those spoilers there. It's great. It does have ground spoilers that come up only on the ground when the weight on wheel switch is triggered. The light here is the logo light, so that shines back up at the tail up there with the Horizon logo, and it has built-in air stairs, also kind of like a CRJ, that come down and then also go into jetway mode where the railings lower down and a little platform comes out. So, in fact, I think we can see that if I go up. Whoops, there we go. Let's see, can we go inside? There we go. So here you can see, as we look down, this little platform goes back up if you're just using the stairs as they are. And so you can do that, which is pretty cool. And I can actually do that with the mouse here. You'll see the stairs come back up, the railings come back up rather, which I won't really do because it kind of kills the immersion. And who wants to do that? So that is the outside view of the Fokker 28, which is quite cool. I will remind you, this is just basically a short demonstration flight to show you how I fly the aircraft with not using the GPS. I actually have the GPS turned on in there, but I'm not going to be using it. So I can show you at some point how you can utilize the GPS there if you need to do more advanced routes. But this is one of those aircraft that's just kind of fun to fly at old school, and it's good practice to fly these things old school. Remember how the VORs work and how navigation works using those old tried and true methods of radials and things like that. So we'll go over that in the flight plan here and talk how we're going to do that, how we're going to get from Phoenix to Palm Springs and deal with that. There is it's all RNAV arrivals into Palm Springs except for one VOR arrival, and that's what we're going to be doing. So that's the plan. Once again, though, this is not a tutorial. This is just me flying the plane, having fun. Did this for the DC-6, and the video's actually done really well. So I figured maybe I should do more of these, and I'm trying not to hack the entire time too, because I really like doing this, but at the same time my voice doesn't want to cooperate. So we're gonna do our best. Bear with me, and let's go ahead and get on the flight deck here. If we come back here first, well, actually no, we'll come here. We gotta put power. So this is the flight deck of the F28. It's again, looks kind of scary if you're, especially if you're not used to having steam gauges. You notice there's no glass. It's all analog instruments, and with the exception of the GPS here, but everything else is all analog. The overhead panel is not that scary. It's not nearly as scary as the MD-80. I think there's not very much going on up here. There's not much you have to deal with up here. The aircraft is at the same time visually complex, and yet it's a little simpler because of the nature of the aircraft and what you have to interact with. Of course, is something like an Airbus cockpit or a 737 cockpit. There's just, in some ways, there's not as much to interact with. But Just Fly has done a fantastic job of modeling everything and and giving us all this stuff. So we'll go ahead and get to powering the aircraft first. We do have ground power. So the first thing we would do, though, is over here at our electrical buses. On the DC side, we want to check our batteries, and so we can set battery 2 right there. Shows us we got 25 volts. If we go to battery 1, we've also got about 25 volts, so that's good. And we'll just leave that on the meter for the moment. We're going to go ahead and select external power in a second, and I can actually go and see on the external power we do have our 115 volts and around 400 hertz for the AC. So that's all good. So to turn the power on, battery switch right here, and with the battery switch comes on some lighting, which is this light right here. That's push and light on that panel. It's kind of emergency lighting. There's no way to turn this light on other than to lose power of the aircraft and have it be nothing but battery. It really is just emergency lighting. So, which is kind of interesting. You think like, it'd be nice to have some panel illumination sometimes, and it'd be nice to have a way of turning that on. No, not possible. So anyway, with that, we're going to turn on the external power. External power is right next to it. I'm going to hit that switch right there, and you see the light goes out because now we have power in the aircraft, and we can turn on the other lights. So the dome light for this is a bit of a misnomer. It's back here. It's this big fluorescent deal, but the switch for it's this little button right there. So dome light goes on right there, like so. And in addition to the dome light, we have some panel lights. So this knob right here controls the backlighting for the glare shield, so we will turn that up. And then this knob here is the backlighting for the overhead panel, so we'll turn that up. And so you can see that panel kind of comes to life there a little bit. On either side of the flight deck, you have these two knobs here, which control the floodlight for the panel, and that will get quite bright. I find one click is enough for me just to kind of give me some basic illumination. But if you go all the way up, you can see, man, we can get it really stinking bright in here. So no need for that. And especially since we're flying during the day, I usually just put it up to one click on both sides for the FO and for the captain. And then inside, the lighting for the gauges is behind the yokes. So you have one here for the captain's instruments. Right there, you can see some backlighting right there. You have the same thing over here, instrument lights right there. And then you have some side panel lighting over here. And I think that is, I'm not sure where the captain's equivalent is, or if he has equivalent. Maybe it's because it's this, and the captain doesn't have that. That might be. So anyway, so there's a little extra light there. After that, then the instrument lights here, for the engine instrument lights, is this knob right here. I'll turn that up. So those are some things that I turn up first thing when I get into the flight deck to get it ready to go. You can also turn on these lights. You have the little reading lights here, which are activated, and these guys can move around, so you can move the light around. The light actually moves with it, which is pretty cool. So you have those two. And I'm trying to think if there's any other lights that I ever play with. The only other thing you want to do once you have power is come back here, because the cabin is awfully dark. The cabin lighting is down here. Oops, not that guy. Right there. And right there. There we go. So that turns on all the cabin lighting, you can see. And there's some other stuff up here that you can mess with too. There's an entry light that you can mess with if you want to. So, but yeah, so pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and get in the seat. And before we do anything else, I think let's look over the flight plan. I think that's a good plan to do. So let me pull up the. Actually, let's start. Well, no, we can go over here. Yes. Okay. So here is the flight plan. There we go. This is the OFP, the Operational Flight Plan. You can see it here in Sim Toolkit Pro. And we're taking 74 passengers today, right there, 1702 of cargo. These are in kilograms, by the way. This aircraft, while you can, in the tablet, change it from pounds to kilograms and vice versa, none of the instrumentation in the cockpit can display anything but kilograms. And so in an effort to not confuse myself, I figure I'm just going to run this thing in kilograms, because otherwise I'm looking at pounds and then trying to see gauges that are in kilograms and they don't make sense. And so anyway, just one of those things. I usually run all my aircraft in pounds unless I have to run in kilograms, and this is one of those instances. The BAE 146 is the same way. So 1702 kilograms there. Zero fuel weight is going to be 25,319. Our block fuel is 5,367. So all these weights seem really low, and again, that's because they're in kilograms. So there we go. All right, and that is that. Our route is pretty simple because it's not a very long flight today. Phoenix to Palm Springs. It's the shoot. I just forgot what the name of this. What is this called? The Buckeye. The Buckeye 4. The Buckeye 4 departure to Blythe, the Blythe VOR, and then we have the Cloud 1 arrival into Palm Springs. And the Blythe VOR is both the SID transition and the star transition. So we transition from one to the other, and we'll always be on either the SID or the star or the approach. So the en route portion is very small. Flight level 240. SimBrief tried to give me 340, to which I said, for this small flight, heck no. So we'll actually have a fair bit of cruise time at 240 by doing that. It's only about 47 minutes en route. It's not very long. 242 miles. And that's what we're doing. Height of deviation is 0. So there we go. En route wind, it looks like 210 at 8.6. So we'll probably be facing some headwinds going all the way there, because we'll be going generally westbound today. So that's fun. What we can do, we can come over here and look at our routing. And so here you can see our routing. In fact, I'll change this over to the VFR map just because you get a better idea of things. So we'll come out of Phoenix here. This is all the Buckeye 4 to Blythe, and then we're right on to the Cloud transition, or sorry, the Cloud arrival and into Palm Springs. And this is that VOR arrival into Palm Springs right there. And last I checked, the winds into Palm Springs actually very low, variable at 3 at the moment, which is rare for Palm Springs. Palm Springs is known for having a lot of wind through this pass, and gets very windy. That's why there's so many solar farms around here too. So, but we'll see what happens by the time we get over there. We did have some weather though. If we click on the weather tab here, you can see it's going to spawn in. There we go. Excuse me. Let's take some water here. That's better. All right. And so we do have some weather. I think based on looking at it, there's no thunderstorm warnings. It's all just rain for the most part, so it shouldn't be anything problematic. But it could mean some icing conditions because of cold and stuff, so we'll want to be aware of that. Looks like by the time we get to Blythe, though, we're going to have that all behind us. So it's really just for the climb out that we have to worry about that. And there's some warnings of turbulence in here as well. And we can check this. This is on weather on radar right now. If we go to air segments here. That's helpful. But let's turn off almost everything. So you notice thunderstorm is the only one that's on, and there is not a thunderstorm segment. But if we do ice, for example, there is ice warnings here. And if we can click this, we say freezing level at 7,000 up to 13,000, top 25, 6,000 to 13,000, top 25. So it kind of just explains it there. So the hazard that we want to be especially worried around is the 6,000 to 13,000 limit. But the top of that is going to be about 25,000 feet, which we're going to be in the whole time because we're only going 24. So that's good to know. And each one has... No, it's just that. Okay, so it's all of that. So we turn ice off, but we turn turbulence on, same thing. And we can see the turbulence, 18,035. Basically... And there's some surface stuff to 18. So it's basically all the way up to 35. So, and that could possibly extend all the way to Palm Springs. So good to know. Let's see, this is mountain obstruction, which makes sense because of clouds and, you know, mountains. IFR, which we don't really care about because we're running IFR anyway. So, yeah, so those are the segments. Anything else I want to be... Oh, let's look at the wind barbs. This is also very helpful. So actually mostly a crosswind, it looks like, that we're looking at for us. We're going to be at 240, and that's 220, 260. It doesn't change much as it gets stronger. So yeah, we're looking at mostly crosswinds, but you know, slightly headwindy crosswinds. Jet stream really shouldn't matter to us very much because we're going to be low, but there it is. So yikes. Very cool, though, that you can do this on Navigraph now. So. All right, so that's our general weather brief. As far as the actual airport weather goes, we can look at the ATIS here. I want to look at the real one. There we go. In the real world, Phoenix is information Quebec for both departure and arrival. Departing runway 25 right. We're going to be looking at winds at 170, 15, gusting 27. So it is blustery here. And you can hear it, actually. 10-mile visibility, scattered at 4,800. Temperature 14, dew point 9. Altimeter 2970. And so I was talking about wind, showers and rain, distant, blah, 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 blah. Expect visual we don't care about the approaches, so we're not going to worry about that. And we're not on the network, so we don't really care about anything beyond that, too. But it is information Quebec. So 2970, though, is very important for us. We can also take a look at the current Palm Springs weather. Again, they don't have a digital ATIS, so we can just look at the METAR. And the METAR says it's variable at 3, 10-mile viz broken at 5,000, broken at 6,500, overcast at 8,000, temperature 12, dew point 8, altimeter 2964. So the pressure is going to be going down as we go over there, 2970 here. So there we go. And with that, we'll switch back over to our stuff here. I'm going to turn this off because we're going to fly with the VORs, and I don't want to cheat. So we're gonna turn that off so we're not cheating. So we'll navigate old school. We're sitting over here though at the south ramp, and we know 25 right is going to be where we're going out. So we will push back, and we'll head out this way toward down Delta. Eventually get onto Echo all the way to the end, Echo 13, and 10,300 feet of runway to go. Okie dokie. And then we've got the Buckeye. The Buckeye is a fun one. We actually take off at runway heading until we're at or above 1,550, 1,550 feet. And then we turn to 240 heading until we hit the 13 DME of the PXR or the Phoenix VOR. So we'll have to have that tuned up, 115.6. And at that point, we turn again back to 280 and head back up to intercept the 257 inbound course to the Buckeye VOR on the 77 radial. And then once we hit Buckeye, then we're going to fly outbound on Victor 16, which is the 262 radial. For a little while, it'll become the 260 inbound course. And again, the difference here is because of magnetic variation. So as you go, that course changes over time. So 262 to start at the changeover point. That's what this is right here. 54 DME from the Buckeye VOR, or 44 DME from the Blythe VOR, we then start tracking inbound. So we'll be tracking outbound Buckeye. At this point, we switch and track inbound Blythe. And then from Blythe, we'll pick up the chart for the Cloud 1, which is over here. Cloud 1, Blythe VOR 117.4. We track outbound 278 to DKIS, and we'll know we hit DKIS when we're 37.4 DME from the Blythe VOR. Again, we don't have any RNAV capable equipment. We do have a GPS. We're going to ignore it, though. And so we'll know we're there at that point, and then we're going to continue on another 15.3 DME, or you can see in the gray here, 52.7, which is the total from the Blythe VOR to UBABE. And if you know anything about Palm Springs, this is a reference to Sonny and Cher. So we get the UBABE, the Sonny Bono 1 is the other major arrival here. So we'll hit UBABE. And at that point, we are going to turn 252 to Cloud. Well, now Cloud, how do we find that? Well, it is on the 7.2 radial of the Palm Springs VOR, 24.6 DME away. So we can find UBABE off Blythe, and then we'll find Cloud off Palm Springs. At that point, we'll turn south 201 inbound radial to the Thermal VOR, and the Thermal VOR will take us to this VOR approach, which will bring us to a procedure turn, which we'll probably use because we'll want to lose some altitude here, I'm guessing. And once we do the procedure turn, we'll then come back in on the 292 outbound of Thermal, which will hit us in the direction of the runways. But you notice it does not line us up, so we are still going to be essentially visual at a certain point. This is not a precision approach in the least. There's no ILS here. So we'll know we're at Mulch, 14.4 DME from Thermal, and on the 152 intercepting radial from Palm Springs. Mulch, we should be at 3,100. That's the Maltese Cross there, our final approach fix. And then we continue on down to the 20.4 DME from Thermal, which is our missed approach point right there. And if at that point we still have not gotten the runway, which we're practically on top of at that point, we will turn toward Palm Springs and start the process over again. The missed approach is climbing right turn to 4,000 direct to Palm Springs VOR, and outbound on the Palm Springs 124 radial, and inbound on the Thermal VOR 304 radial to the Thermal VOR and hold. Boom, right there. So that is our approach into Palm Springs. So as you can see, it all can be done without the need of any RNAV equipment, but it just takes a little bit more work on our end, which makes it a little fun. So, okay, so let's start setting up the aircraft. First thing we gotta do is we gotta open up the tablet, and we're gonna go over, not there, we're gonna go to home, we're gonna go to OFP, we're gonna continue, and now that that's loaded in, we're gonna go back to aircraft and say import. It's gonna bring in our weights. Now what it does that annoys me, and I wish it didn't, it doesn't read the number of passengers we have. It just puts 85 here, and then it balances everything out with cargo. So I'm gonna leave it because, I mean, the weight is the weight, but I feel like the distribution is probably slightly different, but it's fine. So if we go and double check our zero fuel weight 25319, that matches exactly the flight plan, and fuel 5367, that also matches exactly the flight plan. So we're good. Little trick to get your correct trim setting here. I'm gonna try and see where you can see both. Watch that little arrow as I click on the number there. Boom. You see how it, well, actually the arrow didn't move. This thing moved slightly. We're very much in trim already, so it moved ever so slightly. But if this was way out of trim, in fact, let me help it. Make it more obvious. Boom. There we go. See how it moved back, jumped. So that'll set your trim. Because it does give you a CG amount, it does not give you a trim amount. And so there's no way to really know what that's supposed to be, because that's obviously reading for something, and that's reading 25.2, so those numbers do not jive, so there's no way to know what you're supposed to be setting that to. So that's the way to do that. Alright, a couple other bits of homework we're going to do here. We're going to turn off the nose wheel steering because we're going to get pushed back, and you want to have that off for the nose wheel steering section of that. We're going to come up here, and we're going to need to have air conditioning for the aircraft, so I'm going to go ahead and start the APU. Before we do that, though, we want to make sure we do an APU fire test. So The fire test is this switch right down here. I want to be able to see the APU fire lights here and then the thing light up down here. So we're going to hold this. And we're going to wait till that extinguishing test light comes on down there. There we go. And now we can reset. So the APU fire test, the APU fire system is working. So with that, we will turn the APU main switch on. This is going to open up the air door on the outside of the aircraft. And we're just going to wait a few seconds for that to open. There's no indication that it's open. You just give it, you're supposed to wait about 10 seconds, I think. And after a little while, we'll go ahead and start. To start the APU, very simple. The start light is also a button. Push and hold. And I like to hold it until I see the needle go past the 10, and then I'll let it go. And you'll see our EGT is starting to rise. Our RPM is starting to rise. And right around 50, you should see the EGT start to pull back a little bit. There we go. This continues to rise, and then we'll get this inoperative light, which should go out once the APU reaches full speed. There we go. Actually, it's not going to go out because I've got the gen off. But now that it's at full speed and stabilized, we can go gen on, and you can see the APU is working. Now, nothing cut over because the ground power takes precedence. So as long as I have ground power connected, the APU is going to stay off the bus. So what I can do though is I come down here and go click, and you see the flash. I love the changeover in this. And now we're running on the APU generator. So we can move the ground card away. Now we need to give it some time because you always want the APU to run for about a minute or so before you give it any APU air, bleed air. And it allows it to burn off any residuals, oil and things, so it doesn't push any of that smell into the cabin. Also, it's just healthy for the APU to stabilize and run up to full temp and kind of be for a little bit before you start extracting major amounts of power from it by pulling its bleed air out. But we can prep this. We're going to turn the right main on, and we're going to leave the left main off. The APU on this bird is only powerful enough to run one PAX system at a time. So you don't want to have both of them on. So we turn the one on there, and these valves will move once we give it air. But the reason we do the right one is because that's the one that favors the passenger cabin, and obviously that's who we're most concerned with in the airline business. So all the other switches, we just make sure they're guarded and closed, and the anti-ice systems are in the off position at the moment. Down here, if it was really cold, we could turn the window heat on now. I will wait to do that until we actually start our engines, because again, the AC load on the APU is a lot, and the APU is older on this aircraft and wasn't designed to carry too much of a load. So we'll leave that alone. We do want to make sure the windshield heating priority is on the left-hand side because I'm flying. These are the anti-ice engine anti-ice switches. We can put them in auto later once we start, and they can stay there, and then we can always flip them on manual if we need to. The other thing we want to do though is on the pressurization controller is change the cabin altitude. We're changing the cabin altitude selector, but we're aligning it with the our intended cruising altitude. So we want to set 24, and you go 1,000 higher than you're going to actually cruise. So we want to set 25, and that should bring us to a cabin pressurization of just a little, right around 3,500 feet equivalent. Okay, so that's done, and now I think enough time has elapsed. We can go ahead and turn on the bleed air valve. You see all the valves move, and you'll hear the air conditioning system start to spool up. That's all good. Turn on the emergency lights for the passengers, and we'll turn on the no smoking sign, and I think that's all good. Alright, let's turn our attention now to the rest of the panel here. We can test our caution switches, our caution lights rather, and we can clear our master warning right there. We already set up all of our lights, and the brake is set. However, we want to make sure that the brake system has good, we've got the chocks on at the moment, we want to make sure the brake system has good pressure in the accumulator. And if we look over at the brakes system, you can see there is some pressure here, but it's not fully up. So let's go ahead and go to the System 1 electrical pump. Click that on, you see the hydraulic pressure rise and the brake pressure rise right there. I'm just going to let this go all the way up fully into the green before I kill the system. There we go, and then we'll turn that back off. That's just to allow, this will back off, but the brakes should hold pressure now unless I start pumping the brakes. because the accumulator is going to hold pressure there. So all of our hydro pumps are on, so they're good for when the engines start. We did our APU fire test. We should do our engine fire test, so let's do that. And again, I want to make sure I can see those switches, so do the left-hand side and the right-hand side. We get the light there and the light on the ignition system, on the start switch, and the bell. So that's all good. We can verify our fuel quantities right here. We have our two main tanks, and then there's a little center tank here that I don't think we're using at the moment. So that's all good there. Over down here, the TTC takeoff switches, we want to put those in takeoff mode. This will set basically like the governor on the engine to run in takeoff mode, and then once we get up to a climb, we'll just turn that to climb, and we can leave the throttles in the notch, and the power will slightly reduce for climb. So it's a nice little feature. Nav lights we want to turn on, and we're not really messing with the radios today, but we could make sure all of these were up and running. We do want to make sure the radio masters are on, because that will control our VOR radios as well, and those are definitely necessary. So want to make sure those. All these switches are on. They're showing low pressure lights right now because the engines are off, but that's fine. Also, we want to be aware there is a control lock here, a gust lock. So that we want to turn off before we start moving the aircraft, so we have control there. Okie dokie. Let's also set 2970 on our altimeters. 2970. Do I not? I don't think I have a standby altimeter, I guess. Okay. 2970, and it looks like it sets basically on the other side, so that's good. 2970. Perfect. All right, that's all set. Clear that warning again. Again, you can do. You can test the enunciators here for the various autopilot modes, and the autopilot controller is down here, by the way, kind of like on a on the 727. It's down on the pedestal, and we have the autopilot, we have the yaw damper, and then we have a pitch mode. This autopilot system is very interesting, and it takes a little getting used to. So we'll deal with that when we get into flight. And I think that is all set. So the next thing we need to do is set up our various radios for how we're going to fly this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pitch command. I'm going to put that straight up because that, if we go into heading here, you'll see it's going to go up to the 10 degree line. So that's going to give us our 10 degrees of pitch up. Next, we're going to look at the departure. And notice that the first thing we want to do is fly runway heading, which in our case should be 258. So we're going to set the heading to 258. So there is, which should at this point be pretty much directly to, perpendicular to us. So we're going to do that. And I also see this is blinking right now, so we'll go ahead and enter that, let it sync up its satellites. Again, we're not going to use this, but it'll be on and available if we need it in a pinch. I'm not going to program it or anything. So 258 roughly for the heading. If we show the heading now, we'll see a full deflection off to the side. You can see our 10% right there, or 10 degrees, which is nice. What is a limitation of this is, I believe in the real aircraft, in SC, which is not a modeled function, the aircraft would do a certain amount of vertical guidance, very rudimentary vertical guidance, but without it you only have heading mode. And I think the advantage of SC is you could get the vertical side of it without having the heading deflection. So you always want to make sure that this thing is set, the heading wise is set to where you're currently going. Otherwise, you get a flight director that's showing off in a weird direction. It's kind of hard to follow. So it's just a limitation. And again, the only way you're going to change that pitch bar is by messing with this pitch command here. It's not going to do it, anything else. So, which again, unfortunate, but it is what we have. All right. So the next thing is we're going to be 240 is going to be our first turn, and then we're going to 280. So that we're just going to have to remember. Then we have a 257 to the VOR. 257. And that is the Buckeye VOR 110.6. Now, before... Well, actually, let's do this. Yeah, 110.6. I'm going to set that here, because that's where we're going to be going. Now, instead of sending the Blythe VOR to this one, I'm actually going to set the Phoenix VOR in the number 2, because we have that 13-mile distinction from the Phoenix VOR to where we need to turn back to 280. So 15.6 is that one. 15.6. We want to make sure our DMEs are turned on for both of these, and then make sure that the volume knob is turned up to make sure those are on. And the Phoenix VOR, I don't care about the course. However, what I can do then is use that as a memory device, because I don't care about the course. So I'm going to set that. It's easy to remember 240 after 258. I'm going to set this to 280, so I remember that's where I'm going when I hit the 13 DME. So I'm going to set that to 280. And it's not going to show anywhere on here anyway, because both of the HSIs are tied to whichever one is active. So we're in nav 1, you see the light there. If I switch this over to nav 2, they both go into nav 2, and they set the course heading, and they're following that guy. So that's, you're only going to get them both there anyway, but I do have them on the RMIs. So, and I will see the DMEs. So the DME to Buckeye will show here. We're too far away and on the ground at the moment to pick it up. But I am showing the Phoenix VOR DME, which is 1.9. So the number 2 shows here, the number 1 shows here. And same thing on the co-pilot side, number 1 shows here, the number 2 shows there. So that's something to be aware of, but that's very helpful that we get both DMEs, even though I don't see the courses. And I will see the needle deflects, I just won't see the CDI needle with it, so, which is fine. Okay, so those are set. We're going to look at the table here for our takeoff. We're going to be doing a flap 11 takeoff. So we click, watch the speed windows here, or the speed bugs. We click that, and you notice they shift. So they set the bugs for us when we hit 136. So we'll make sure we set flap 11 for our departure. And with that, the last thing we could do is our squawk code is already set to 2000. We would turn this to on, and I believe, yes, and altitude on right there. So you want to set it to on, and altitude reporting, that combined is mode C. So if you're on VATSIM, we're not on VATSIM, so you don't have to do that, but that's where it is. Okay, so with all that said and done, I think we're ready to button it up and push back. So I'm going to call for GSX, which I hope is working now. I restarted it. Yep, there we go. And we're going to say prepare for pushback and departure. We're none of these things, so I'm just going to say AccuFleet, sure. Let's remove the ground power wire. We're not on it anymore, so we can just get rid of that. And now that that's coming back up, we can go over here. This is kind of cool. You can actually watch all this happen. And we can lift the jetway first, the jetway mode, and then by clicking here, we'll raise the stairs. And that's how you can lower the stairs too, by the way. There we go, locked and loaded. So we can go back into the cockpit, we can close the door, and sit back in the seat. And there's our pushback tug coming to push us back. Seatbelt signs will go on now for the passengers since we're going to start moving. And yeah, everything else should be good.
Locking gear.
Don't put your head there in real life. Oh, and it goes right back. Oh, we gotta remove the chocks. Oh, dang it. Nose to the right.
Release parking brakes, please.
Alright, so brakes release. parking brake is right there, which I have a button on my yoke.
Push. All engines clear. Start at will.
Alright, so we're ready for engine start. Starting engines, very simple in this aircraft. Obviously, first we want to make sure our fuel tanks are on. So right here, you have the tank pumps for the left and right. Basically, it's just two pumps in each tank, so that's why both lights go out when either one of them turns on, so it's kind of redundant, which is what most aircraft have. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the engine start master, and all we got to do is hold this guy for a moment over to number 2, and you'll watch the air will turn off automatically, which is very cool. So there is a certain amount of automation. Starter valve is open, and we're now watching on the HP spool until we get to 15, which is right in the middle, and this little mini guy is right about there. That's 15. So start switch goes to start. You see the igniter light goes on. You can hear the engine spooling up. Now, I didn't do this. It didn't do this to me the other day. It's supposed to, and I've had it go in and out. So we'll see what happens. I have my SPAD program to when it gets to about 50. This should advance automatically. Let's see if it does. Hey, it worked. Okay, cool. So if it doesn't, I mean, it won't for you unless you set up your SPAD the way I did. And if you don't have SPAD, it definitely won't. So after you start them, once you get to 50 on the HP spool, you want to push that into run. Or idle, whatever that's, what is that stop called? Open, okay. So you go to start and then to open after that. Alright, let's start the other engine.
Please set parking brake.
But first we'll set a parking brake. That way they can start disconnecting. Same thing, we just go to 1 over here. See the air cuts out and the starter valve opens. Again, watching the HP spool. So the way this is, the engine split is right here, but this is the LP spool, low pressure, also known as N1, and the HP spool, which we would call N2, and then hit the fuel right there. And then you have oil pressure, you have oil temperature, fuel temperature, it looks like. This is the TGT, which is turbine gas temperature, and then this is a power rating of the engine. Where you're looking for 100% basically on takeoff.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
So all of these are engine 1, and all of these are engine
Left
2.
is clear. Right is clear.
So sometimes it takes some getting used to. You're always looking for like down, but it's across for your 2 primary engine gauges, N1 and N2, N1 and N2, or in this case LP and HP. So, all right, they both have gone to open. And we can set now the flaps here to 11. That's 6. There's 11, slightly into that notch there. And our flap gauge right here shows us flap 11. Very easy to spot with the caution tape around it. We want to make sure they're disconnecting the tow, so we can turn the nose wheel steering back on. That will kill your nose wheel steering if you don't do that. So always want to make sure you do that. And then let's take the gust lock off so we can test our flight controls. So left, right, forward, backward, left and right. There we go. And then nose wheel steering just by itself. So you can steer with the rudder pedals as well. You notice how that's turning the nose wheel steering in this case. But I have a nose wheel tiller, and that just does it with the guys. Now, in reality, and I don't know how the Fokker worked, but most airliners on the ground, you do have nose wheel authority with the pedals as well, but it's like 5 to 10 degrees either direction. Very little directional nose wheel, whereas the tiller will let them go like 80 to 90 degrees deflection. So you just have less authority, but you do have some. But it looks like here, when I'm pushing that, it's moving that tiller all the way over. So I think that's just a simism. I don't think there's anywhere, because I think the only place you can do that is to tell it in here that you're using, let's see, aerials, yeah, rudder axis. Oh, No, I don't want rudder access steering. Maybe that's my problem. Why is that on? Ah, there we go. No wonder they were so stupid sensitive the other night. Okay, they fixed my problem. Sweet. All right, cool. So that's good. We want to turn on... Oh, we should turn on our anti-collision lights before we start our engines. That's bad form. Do as I say, not as I do. Taxi lights right here. We're going to extend our landing lights. We're not going to turn them on. So you have extend and on switches. The taxi light has 3 positions: retract, extend, and on. So it's all built in. And then over here you have the nav lights, the strobe lights, 2 anti-collisions, one for the top, one for the bottom, ice and spec light, storm light, and then the red dome light. So for at night you can put the thing into rig for red, like you're flying a submarine, which is kind of cool. We'll turn off the dome light now, which you can. The click spot is findable somewhere here. I just did this the other day. There it is. We'll turn on the pitot and static heating. Windshield heating goes to low, and that's still there. We can now turn on the other side of the packs. We'll turn off the air from the APU, and to stop the APU, we'll actually turn the generator off, and you hold this for a moment to stop it, and then you see it start to spin down. Leave the main door open until this spins down for a while. So we're going to check it again when we get to the end of the runway, and then we'll close the door, the flap, if you will. But that's something I often forget, so if I forget, then I'm sorry. Because I tend to do it. Alright, all that said, I think we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and throttle forward. I think what we'll do, we'll just turn here on off of Delta down to Echo. Now we can just take Echo all the way down. By the way, this is the Fokker F28 4000. There are 4 different variations: the 1000, 2000, 3000, and 4000. And they all have to do with... I think 2 of them are slightly longer. I'm trying to remember if there's any length change, or if it's just... I want to say there's a slight length change in 2 of them versus the other 2. But then the other differences are fuel, tank, and range, and that kind of thing. So I don't remember off the top of my head which one is which. The 4000 obviously is, if there is a length variation, it's the biggest. But it also isn't necessarily mean it has the longest range, because it can carry more payload. I think it is... I want to say the 2000 or the 3000 actually has the longest legs. But the 4000... I want to say it's like the 2000 and the 4000 are the same size, and the 1000 and the 3000 the same size, and then the 2000 or 3000 has like longer range. I don't remember. I have to go back and look at them all. I used to know this. I think I want to do a full-on tutorial video or video series on this Fokker, but obviously I have a lot to learn still. I'm not nearly ready to do that yet. Let's go ahead and put the flight director into heading mode. By the way, this altitude hold is only for the pitch. Nothing here talks to the autopilot. It's just for the flight director. They are completely independent. And you control the autopilot modes with these buttons here. Alright, so here is the end of the runway. I'll go ahead and stop behind the hold short bars, and we'll get the APU flap closed. Whoop. So go ahead and do that. We'll turn that off. Also turn the engine start switches off. The master off should be off as well. The radio switches are on. We're transponding. We'll go ahead and turn our landing lights and our strobe on now. One more time we can verify our TCC switches are in the takeoff mode. They are. I have a button for those on my Bravo, so you won't see me switch those in flight. It'll just happen. You'll hear a click. We're going to get on the runway. We're going to run the throttles up, and in the notch here is where we're going to stop them. and I believe I've got it to where I've got kind of a detent where I'll hear it click, and so I'll just wait to hear that, and then I believe the FO, excuse me, will say thrust set as well. So remember, we're taking off runway heading 258 past 1550. We're going to 240 heading, and then 13 DME from Phoenix. We're going 280 heading until we intercept the Bucky VOR 257 heading. So just a quick recap, and we're going to clear ourselves all the way up to altitude. There's no altitude restrictions on the Star, so we're just going to take them as per normal. And I almost forgot, I want to start something here. Cool. Okay. All right, so here we go. So in this case, we got a really long runway, but in certain cases, you might want to hold the brakes while you get the thrust set. I'm going to spool it up a little bit, let it stabilize, and then we're going to go to the notch. There's the click.
Power set.
Power set, he says. Still very squirrely, even with the rudders. Even with that thing turned off, so I don't think that solved my problem. And there's going to be no V1 call. The rotate is V1, so it's just going to go straight to rotate.
Rotate.
There it is. It's that gusty wind. Holy moly.
Positive climb.
Gear up.
Gear up.
Goodness. Alright, there's 1500. We can go heading to 240.
Flaps up.
Flaps coming up.
Set climb power.
Climb power. There's 240, and we're going to hold this until we get to 13 DME right there on the Phoenix VOR while we continue climbing. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to set my speed bug reference to 250 here, and that way I'll see it on the fast slow when we're getting up there, because we don't want to break through that 250. We'll shallow our climb a little bit here to get closer to that 250 knots. Seven DME. We're still heading 240. You can see we do have the Buckeye VOR now coming in, so that's good. Nine DME. Passing 7,000 feet, and according to our outside air temperature, we are in the icing range, and we're going through clouds. So we're going to go ahead and turn on our engine anti-ice to auto, and we're going to turn our wing anti-ice on as well. And we're coming into 250 knots, so we're going to go yaw damper and autopilot on. We're going to say heading mode and IAS mode. And we're coming up on 13 now. There's 13 DME. We'll go ahead and set 280. Aircraft's going to turn. It's going to keep climbing, and I want to make sure this is set to 240, otherwise it's going to stop at 10,000. It's hard to see right now that these are the modes engaged in darker climates or darker situations. These are very nicely illuminated. You can see a little bit of a glow, but unfortunately there's not much to tell you what mode is engaged. So alright, so we're waiting to intercept this, and to do that we're going to hit beam mode. I usually wait till at least the bar is within the last dot here. Coming above the clouds, so in just a little bit here we'll turn the anti-icing off. I'll leave it on for a little bit longer. Make sure we're above this nonsense. Kind of waiting to hit the beam. I'm judging how fast we're closing, so I'm not closing that fast. So I don't want the autopilot to steer us the other way, which it will do if we're too far out. So just using my judgment. That's good. There we go. There's that beauty. Oh, we got a rainbow. We are above 10,000 feet now, so we can turn the landing lights off and bring those in. Taxi light can go retracted as well. All that stuff stays on over there. And I'm going to go ahead, as we're leveling out here, I'm going to go ahead and switch this to pitch. And I'm going to pitch us down. I remember which one's pitch down is this one. It should be that, right? Nope, it's backwards. Oh, it just stuck, didn't it? What the heck? Oh, it did this to me before. Oh, there we go. I think there's something screwy with my SPAD setting for this. I gotta refine it. So I've got a Bravo control that I'm dealing with that pitch switch to alter the pitch. So pitch is down. Also going to change this back to VOR so that way it shows the flight director correctly. We're going to climb out at roughly 250 knots, so I'm waiting to get that right on the money. And now we'll go back to IS. And again, you notice the pitch command bars aren't changing because they're only going to change with this pitch command here. So once the aircraft kind of settles, then I can bring those back and kind of match it. But there's kind of no point since unless I know what I want to be pitching at. There's no point. We're kind of above the moisture now, so I'm going to go ahead and just turn those guys back on. I'll let them do their thing for a moment. I'm going to turn the wing anti-ice off. Oh, we do have an ice detect light. Never mind. Okay, so that's why that kicked on. So we are still getting ice somewhere, apparently. There's enough moisture in the air. Moisture's in the air. Alright, so once again, we're flying the outbound now off Buckeye 262. So we'll just switch this over. What I like to do with this airplane is when we get within about 5 miles or close to it, we'll go to heading hold for the switch over. So you always want to make sure you sync up your heading bug there. And sync it up to where it's, if the plane is holding you on your radial, put it where the plane is, not where the radial is, because the autopilot's compensating for the wind. So if you suddenly do that, then you'll start to fly off the radial you want to fly. And past 18,000, so we got to set standard pressure, 2992. 2992. Set. Alright, so we're going to go into heading mode. And I'm going to change this to 262. I mean 262. Do the right one. And now we're waiting to cross it. And eventually this thing will wig out and turn off and then turn back on as we go over the top. Alright, the ice detect light went out, so let's go ahead and turn those off. Oh, as the ice tick comes right back on. Alright, I'm just going to leave the engine anti-ice in auto, and it can do its thing. The stupid thing is being dumb. Off on. There we go, it just went around. So we're going to bring the airplane now over to the other side to make sure we can intercept the course. It's going to be wide out because we're right over the station. But as we compensate, it should come in pretty quickly. And there it comes. And beam. There we go. And the airplane will track the outbound 262. Now the changeover point is 54 miles. So when this is 54, we're going to switch over. In the meantime, we need to set the Blythe VOR 117.4. So that's going to be on number 2, 117.4. And that should be 260. And you can see we are already picking it up. I talked about this in the DC6 video, I think, where I suddenly have realized that 1 bar means VOR1 and 2 bars means VOR2. Stupid moose. And so they're actually pretty lined up at the moment, which is really good. That's actually what we want to see. We're on that, flying that radio. But we're picking both of them up. So even if we were to lose Buckeye prematurely, we can switch over to Blythe, which is good. And we're coming up on our cruise altitude right now. So I'm going to leave the engines in the notch, and the aircraft's going to speed up. I'm now going to change the speed here to about Mach 0.7. So it's got some distance from the barber pole, and we're going to have to watch it. There's no auto throttle, so as the speed increases, when it gets close there, we're going to have to pull the throttles back. So just something you got to watch. And then once you kind of get those set, you can get them, you can set them and pretty much forget them. But definitely want to be aware of what you're doing there early on. Aircraft is pressurizing nicely. Yeah, it's a fun aircraft. Especially for short little hops. This little commuter. Sound pack sounds pretty good. When we get start descending down to Palm Springs, we'll get to see the butt flap in action. Clouds are amazing. Yeah, we're definitely still skimming through them, so and we get the ice detect light, makes sense. Alright, see, we're coming up on that 0.7. You can see the slow fast indicator rising there. So I'm going to start to pull the engines back ever so slightly. Gentle maneuverings of the engines is the name of the game, because you'd be surprised how little you take off when you start to lose speed again, which I just did. So we're gonna give it a little bit bump there, try to get it right in the circle, and we'll try to hold it in the circle for the most part. You at least don't want to see it go off the scale either way, because then you know you're really out of control. Pull it back just a whisper. And I'm just watching it to kind of see what the trend is. Make another little adjustment. Small adjustments are nice, otherwise they'll be swinging wildly all over the place. Still increasing, so bring it back a little bit more. Trying to keep them together. Beautiful day. Back throttles off a little bit more, but still at the top of that ring. There's that turbulence we were warned about. It looks like the turbulence is going to really get us to slow down a bit, so I'm going to give it a little bit of extra power now. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time to find the sweet spot. And of course, there's a wind shift or something like that that'll change it too. You can see all of our temps are looking good. Fuel temperature, oil temperature, turbine gas temperature, well within limits. So we're doing about 92% N1, or LP as they call it. $37 miles, so we got looking for 54 for the changeover. On the Cloud 1, we don't have any, oops. Oh, we just lost the, we just lost the Buckeye. So thankfully we can switch over to nav 2. And that should be all set. We go to B. So you notice that I heard that little kind of click, and that's the, that's it leaving beam mode. But it defaults back to roll mode at that point, so it'll just keep the wings level. So whatever the airplane was doing, it will keep doing, which is nice. But you got to be careful, because if you don't catch that, you could be flying off in the sunset somewhere when you're supposed to be tracking something else. So it's definitely an airplane you got to keep on top of. Anyway, we don't have any restrictions on the star. So we're going to need to calculate our own top of descent. And to do that, you can use their little TOD calculator in here, but I like to do it myself. So we're going to use the rule of 3 and decide how much we want to go down. If we look at the chart for the arrival here, at the thermal VOR, we want to be at 4,000. But because of the terrain around us, and we have this procedure turn we can utilize anyway, we've got this 6,900 safe zone here. So I don't think I want to be anywhere below 7,000 in this range. So we're going to call it 7,000 at thermal. And then once we're getting to thermal, then we can lose the rest of the altitude and the procedure turn. So, given that reality, whoops, one more thing before we go away from that screen. We need to find out how much we need to lose to do that. So, we need to go from 24 down to 7. So that is a difference of 17,000 feet, I think. Am I doing that math right? 7,000, 17 plus, no. Yeah. 17, 4, and 3, no, 4, and 18,000. Now I'm dead on myself. I'm gonna look like an idiot. 24 minus 7. It was 7. I was right the first time. Dagnabbit. I was right the first time. So 17. I got rid of the calculator. 17 times 3 is 51, plus a 10 mile cushion. So it's 61 miles. And so what we want to do is we want to backtrack 61. So from thermal, we have essentially 20 miles to cloud. We have, let's see, it looks like another 10 miles to U-Babe, so that's 30 miles. So 20 plus 10, 30. Because it's 24 here and then it's 34 to there, so that would be 10 difference in there. So we're at 30 miles. We have another 15. That is 45. And then we have 37 here. So somewhere in here is where we're going to descend. So we're at 45. We got to do 55. That's 10. 15, 16 miles. So we want to do another 16 miles here. So it's 16 miles from DCAS. Or, because I don't like to do math in the evenings, the total distance, 37.4 minus 16 is 21.4. We'll just call it 21. So 21 miles from Blythe is our top descent. Speed looks good. Track and Blythe, we're 31 from Blythe. It'll be 21 past Blythe. So we have about 50 miles to our top of the descent. Oh, it's getting bumpy again. $20 miles from Blythe. Let's see if I can get a screen grab here. Probably not in the nice. So if you like these videos, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. If you want some interactive versions of this, I stream over on Twitch multiple times a week. Also free, just like YouTube. Doesn't cost to sign up. Obviously, just like in YouTube streaming, you can donate and be a sub and all that stuff and support me that way, but it's not required. But would love to see you come over. And if you did come over from YouTube, please mention that. Love to see people coming over from the YouTube side. I think Twitch is a better platform for streaming, honestly. It's YouTube's okay, but I've done both, and I've watched on both, and I just like the way Twitch is set up better. It just feels more cohesive. I don't know what the word is, but I'd love to see you over there. Twitch.tv/Mustafa. And come say hello. Normally stream on the latter part of the week, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Alright, we're getting close to the Blythe VOR here, so we're going to make sure we sync up our heading bug. And we're flying outbound the Blythe VOR on 278, so we are changing direction here. Alright, there's 5 miles to go heading. Change this to 278. There goes the VOR, so we're going to go ahead and turn toward the new station there. Again, what's happening, for those of you that aren't that familiar with how VORs work, the needle is telling us which direction of the course we've decided to go we are deviating from. So you always want to steer toward the line. And we'll go back into beam mode as that captures. Alright, so now we are waiting for 21 miles from the Blythe VOR in order to start down. Now, once we hit U-Babe, we're going to have the Palm Springs VOR tuned up to make sure we can fly toward that. So that's 115.5. So we're going to set that over here in the number 1. 115.5. And that's going to be on the 252 inbound course. So we'll set 252. And eventually we'll see that guy populate in, but not probably for a little while. We're still a ways out. Like I said, we got to go 50 miles just to get to U-Babe, and at that point we'll be 34 miles from Palm Springs. So a little bit of time. All right, there is 11 miles, 10 miles to go before we start our descent. And the way we're going to descend, we're going to switch to pitch mode. We're going to pull the power, and then we're going to change our using our pitch command here to pitch down to where we have right around 2,000 feet per minute of descent. again, I'm just moving this so it's not way out of the way. This does nothing to do with what we're going to be doing in a second. Alright, here we come. Hey, ice detect. Alright, we're going to pull the engines back until they yell at me. Right there. A little bit. Try and get them out of yelling mode. There we go, out of yelling mode. And then we're going to go pitch. Whoops. I guess it helps to set the altitude here. That I should have done already. That's my bad. Do as I say, not as I do. Pitch. And now we're going to, I think it's like this. I can't ever remember. It's so backwards. Nope. It's fine. Forward. Springtime, the only pretty ring time. I'm just doing it in little bursts and then watching where the VASI needle settles. Not VASI, the vertical speed needle settles. Just gonna make up my own aviation terms for things. I think that's fair. There we go, there's about 2,000 feet a minute, and we'll just let it hold right there. And then we'll move the pitch bars just to about match where we are. Well, we've started our descent. Now, in this aircraft, it's going to yell at you. There is a horn silence. However, especially in art, so I could go to idle now, but you don't really want to because you need the extra engine power to run some systems. And importantly, right now, because we're in icing conditions, you need to make sure there's enough bleed air to run the anti-ice stuff. So, if you find you need to slow down, and you can't go, and you don't want it to scream at you, that's when you can use the ground spoiler, or not the ground spoiler, the air spoiler. And you'll see this right here is the speed brake, and you'll see that we've got up to 60 setting of deflection, and you'll hear it as it comes out, and we can move the handle, that's this big black handle right here, back and forth to kind of attain our speed. Right now we're still plenty high, and so speed's not really an issue. If we were accelerating at this point, I definitely want to pull some of that out, but we're not, so that's okay. Once we get closer to 10,000, though, we'll probably be in a position where to get under 250, we'll need to do that. So we're just going to watch that and see what happens. And then as we're descending here, we just keep an eye on our vertical speed, make sure we're constantly maintaining that 2,000. Now, the other way you could do it, which is not really advised, but it could be done, is you could go into IAS mode and then adjust your vertical descent with your throttles. But it's not as smooth, doesn't provide as good of a ride for the passengers. Also, you get in areas where you're going to be hitting the buzzer, and so it's just, this way is preferred. So if you can set up a button to control this pitch with your hardware, very, very highly recommend. Now you can get it just right here where I can see this and see the vertical speed, and you can do it with your mouse, but it's kind of a pain. Obviously in a real aircraft you can just put your hand down here and manipulate this while looking straight ahead. That's not an issue. In a sim, it's helpful if you can create a button to do that for you. Alright, 52.7 is our total to UBABE, and we are getting close to that, and we have not picked up the Palm Springs VOR yet, so we're going to be turning to 252 on Faith here in a moment. So I'm going to set this, oh, and there comes Palm Springs right as I start to lose hope. Alright, I'm just going to set this to about 252, right in there somewhere. I just saw the RMI needle deflect, so we're good. So I think actually what I'm going to do to make the turn a little better is I'm going to go ahead and go into heading mode here. We're going to switch over to Palm Springs. And then as this comes in, we'll just go into beam. It's a very nice way to do a clean intercept. And right there, I think we'll go. And then we need to set thermal. So that is 116.2 and it's 201. So this is number 2 now. 116.2, 201. And are we picking up thermal? Yes, we are. Good. Because we're only going to do this for about 10 miles. We're looking for 24.6 on the DME, and then we're going to thermal. Oh, I forgot I have multiplayer on still. Take care of that. I don't want any riffraff. I'm trying to make a video. Alright, we'll check our latest weather. Latest METAR showing the winds flat calm now, 0-0. Light rain though, broken at 5,500, overcast at 8,000. Temperature 11, dew point 9, altimeter 29er66. So let's go ahead and set 29er66. That's right, it sets. Alright, we're getting close, so let's go ahead and center up that heading again. We're going to go into heading mode. We're going to swap and prepare to intercept the thermal. And we got 20 miles to thermal. And then we'll go into the procedure turn. And we'll stay there as long as it takes to get down to 4,000. Once we get past 11,000 feet here, we'll go ahead and pull out the butt flap speed brake. Final approach fix is at 3,100 feet, so that's below the ceiling of 5,500. So we should have no issue visibility-wise. Ooh, bumpy, bumpy. See, it overshot so it could recapture because we let it go a little too close than I would have liked. So. The inbound course for the procedure turn is 289, so we're going to need to fly a parallel entry, and that means basically flying the outbound, which is 109 initially, and then we'll come back and teardrop our way in. And at that point, if we are close enough, we will do, if we're low enough, we'll go ahead and go straight in. If we're not, we'll have to go around the racetrack. Oh, and there's coming 10,000 in. So here's the butt flap in action. See that coming out the back there? Funny little device, but it's very effective. So you see like that, we're just dropped down to 250 like that. We are in the soup. So I'm going to go ahead and stow it. And then we'll just keep an eye on our speed. If it creeps back up again, we'll deploy it again. It's taking us down to 7. We're not going to go any real lower than 7. I would say once we're within 5 of thermal, we can go down to 4, and then in the procedure turn, because we're coming up to that now. We got some buffer on either side, and that's the protected side. Yeah, see, it's going back up there, so we're going to deploy a little butt flappy. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and go down to 4. I'm going to turn the surface anti-ice back on too. I don't know if you heard that, but you can actually hear the engine spooling down a little bit as we're taking bleed air off them for that. So we lose a little bit of power by doing that, but it's fine. We're in descent, so it's okay. Alright, so we're going to go heading 109, which is going to be about there. Start our return because we're going about 90 degrees here. We want to stay as close to the VOR as possible. And then while we're doing that, I'm going to set 289, which is the inbound course for the procedure turn / hold. And that way we can kind of watch this and try and get ourselves right on that line. Going to bring it over to here until we see that come in a little bit. So we're actually flying outbound now, but I want to get us a little closer in on the VOR line so we're actually on that outbound of the parallel before we teardrop back in. We're going to fly about a minute out, which I don't... Oh, there we go. There's my clock. There it is. Alright, so we're flying on the outbound of that procedure turn, and it looks like we're going to be at 4,000 here in just a second, so this is going to work out perfectly. So we're just going to do the teardrop around and re-intercept, and we'll be good. But we got to go out for about a minute. We're coming up on 30 seconds. We'll go ahead and slow this down, though, at this point. Another 10 seconds. And the slower speed will keep our turn tighter too, which is good. Alright, there's a minute out, so we're going to turn on the protected side. I'm just going to watch my speed with the speed brake here. I also want to make sure we turn on our landing lights deployed. And we're also going to put the engine system back into takeoff mode. That'll give us full power if we go back into the notch, especially for the go-around. And we're going to arm our ground spoilers right there. You got this terrain here, you want to be very careful. turn back to intercept. And we go down to 3100 at Mulch, which is 14 DME from the thermal VOR. And then the minimum descent altitude, I believe for us, is about 2100 feet. Watching my RMI needle deflect toward 289. That's give me an idea of how close I am to that bar to intercept. There it comes. I'm not going to go into beam because we're close to it, and we're just going to lose it for a moment here anyway. So we're going to do our best to kind of get back on that course. I'm not going to chase the needle now because we're like right over it, so it's going to deflect just with the most minute whatever. So we're only 1 mile and we're vertical, so we're going to wait till that switches over, and then we'll get back on that course. And then we can start our slow descent down to 3100. Now we got 14 miles to go, basically 900 feet. So yeah, see, that's going to swing back in here. We'll go ahead and put that on beam as that comes in. I'll set this down to 3100. Get a pitch. Pitch down, don't need to give it much. Like I said, we got a lot of time to lose 900 feet. We're going to come over here now. We're going to select our flap 42 VREF, which is 124. This all moved. So that's all set up for us now, and as we get lower, the first officer will call out when we should do our flaps. We'll keep that flap coming out in the back. A little bit more pitch down. And after Mulch, another 6 miles puts us at our missed approach point. I think that might be the airport that's starting to show in over there, possibly. We're coming up on 31 right now. I'm going to go to full deflection now on the speed brake, and we'll get it to the point where we can start lowering some flaps. also going to turn off the engine anti-ice, or the airfoil anti-ice and the engine anti-ice. Yeah, those are our runways right there. So runways are in sight.
Flaps 11.
There's flaps 11. There, gear down. Alright, there's 14. We're going to go down to 2100 now. Pitch. Alright, we're going to kick out the autopilot now. Which we'll do. Okay, autopilot's out. And now the gear's down.
Flaps 25.
Flaps 25.
Flaps 42.
42. Okay, speed brake is back stowed. And we will manually pull that right actually before we touch down, because we're floating it a little bit. We'll pull that. A little on the high side at the moment. You gotta be careful. This thing tends to, you end up wanting to be high, but taking the speed away will take a lot of the speed away, and all you have to do is push the nose down. And so, otherwise you lose your speed really fast, and you end up slamming this thing down. Especially once we start to pick the nose up as we get on the glide slope here.
100 feet to minimum.
I don't know what he's getting his minimums thing out. I gotta figure that out. That's not correct. Past minimums. Pull out the speed brake slowly. Beautiful. So there's no reverse, so the spoilers are up. We go onto the brakes. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Alright, stow the speed brakes back up. Flaps coming back up. Kill our little 89 there. That was nice. Yeah, it's really easy though to lose your speed right at the end there. And so I pulled the throttles back to idle basically when he said 50. and started to slowly deploy the speed brake. And so by the time we were touching down, I was in full speed brake deployment. Because this thing will float forever without that. So this will help it settle and kiss the runway very nice. Alright, let's get the APU started up. So APU main on. Again, we'll have to let that door open for a moment. The system's not automatic like it is in a lot of other aircraft, so you gotta let that happen first. We can also turn off the landing lights. The strobe can go off. Hold that guy. APU spooling up. And I might have a replay for you. We'll see. I was running this. I haven't done a replay in this forever. I am running the software, so if it's in the video, it worked. If it's not in the video, it didn't work. Because I'm going to do it. I'm going to stage it separate and edit it back in. So. There's the terminal. This is the AnyBuilds Palm Springs. Very nice scenery. Used to be we had scenery by Axios, but it was okay. But AnyBuilds did a much better job, especially when it comes to the jetway implementation. Let's go down one gate here. There we go. What is this gate? Was it 8? See it. I can't read it. Yeah, I didn't turn the GSX guy on, so that's fine. It's fine. Oh, we're going up a hill. Get a little bit of gas. Stop right there. Parking brake set. And we should have the APU up and running. We can go ahead and put that on. Put the APU air on. We'll turn off the one side. Seatbelt sign can come off. Release some of the electrical load before I switch over solely to the APU. And turn on the dome light here as well. All right. Guy locks in and engine's out. Transponder off and beacons off. Let's go ahead and get the chocks in place. Go, stairs are down, jetway's coming in. Oh, and jetway's trying again. Every once in a while it does that. I don't know what causes that. It gets too close and it's like, nope. Hopefully it doesn't do that multiple times. There we go. Yay. Alright, there we are. Down in Palm Springs. we're going to end the video there. If you saw a replay between the time I exited the airplane just now and you're hearing this, it means that the replay software worked. If you didn't, and I'm just going straight to this, it means that for whatever reason the replay did not work. So, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was fun. I'll do more of these as time allows with different aircraft and different approaches and stuff. It's just a little fun to kind of go through and go in depth in the airplane. It's not a tutorial, but it's just kind of, you know, how I fly it. As Spy always says, not about the right way or the wrong way, but what works for me kind of thing. And that's very much true in this case with these aircraft. Because some of them I know procedures really well, some of them, not so much. So anyway, but again, if you found this enjoyable, hit that like button. It really does help the algorithm. The DC6 video went from like 200-300 views to all of a sudden like jump to 600 and then over 1,000 over like the course of a day, and I think that's just because we hit the algorithm all of a sudden. So I don't know what the secret sauce is there, but I know some of it has to do with you guys liking the videos. So please do that. It does help. I'm trying to grow that YouTube presence, and it is growing, which is nice. But and it's also driving people over to Twitch, which is awesome. So come check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mustafa. Hit that like and subscribe button, and I will hopefully see you on the next one. Take care.